everyone, and welcome to the RGU Students Union Election Results 2021. My name is Emmanuel Akirili, and I'm your President for Education and Welfare. And I'm joined by Peter Robertson, who's the Charity Director at the National Union of Students. Peter was our returning officer this year and ensures that the union runs a free and fair election. This year, we've had the election turnout at 1,243, with total overall of votes cast at 7,756. Wonderful. There's an increase in participation in candidate numbers for president and vice president roles, and then also the voter turnout. So I want to say a big, massive thank you to all the candidates who have taken part this year. It's been a very challenging circumstance running fully digital campaigns. It's great to see the level of enthusiasm and creativity that has been shown across social media during this campaigning period. By the order of announcements, we will be going first with the student vice president positions, and then we will be announcing the student president's positions. And now, I will now hand over to Peter to announce the results.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I should probably say that at this point, before we announce the results, we deal with any complaints. So there are no outstanding election complaints. And as Emmanuel said, I'm going to go through the vice president positions first and then the president position. So the first election we're going to return is the vice president of welfare. There are two candidates. There's always reopen nominations. So there is one candidate as well as reopen nominations. 651 votes were cast in this election, which means the quota that has to be reached to be elected is 325.5. And in the first round, Miller polled 629 votes and reopen nominations polled 22 votes. And therefore, as they exceeded the quota, Miller is duly elected as the vice president of welfare. The next election is vice president of societies. Again, there are two candidates, reopen nominations and Asun Sao. There were 690 votes cast, which means that the quota is 345. In the first round, reopen nominations polled 35 and Asun Sao polled 655, which means that they are duly elected as the vice president of societies. We then move on to vice president of education. Two candidates reopen nominations and Macaulay. The votes cast were 706 and the quota is 353. Ron reopen nominations got 30 votes in the first round and Macaulay got 676, which means that Macaulay is elected as the vice president of education. And then vice president of community, in which there were three candidates. So we have O'Neill, Onwuchukwu, and reopen nominations. There were 723 votes cast, so the quota is 361.5. In the first round, reopen nominations got 24 votes, Onwuchukwu 224 and O'Neill 475. So O'Neill exceeded the quota and is elected as the vice president of community. In the vice president international elections, which are next, there are three candidates, Akinoso, Chukwudi, and reopen nominations. In the first round, reopen nominations got 90. Oh, I should do the vote count. Yeah, there were 601 votes cast, which means that the quota is 300.5. In round one, reopen nominations polled 94, Chukwudi 231, and Akinoso 276. Reopen nominations was then eliminated and their votes redistributed. And in the second round, Chukwudi was 232 and Akinoso was 276. Due to not all the votes transferring in that round, the quota had reduced to 254. Akinoso exceeded that quota and was therefore elected in the second round as the Vice President International. Then we move on to Vice President Sport, in which there are 4 candidates. Reopen nominations as always: McDonald, Gullen and Ashgar. In the first round, reopen nominations polled 11, McDonald 187, Gullen 341, Ashgar 173. The total vote count was 712 and the quota was 356. Nobody reached quota in round 1. Reopen nominations was eliminated and their votes redistributed. And in round 2, McDonald polled 188, Gullen 342, and Ashgar 173. At that point, due to non-distribution of votes in round 2, the quota had fallen to 351.5, but again, no one has met the quota. So the person with the lowest number of votes, which was Ashgar, was eliminated and their votes redistributed. The quota is now 289.5, and in round 3, McDonald polled 207 votes and Gullen 372. So Gullen has exceeded the quota, and in round 3 they are elected as the Vice President Sport. Now we can move on to the President elections. The first one being the President of Sport and Physical Activity. 781 votes were cast in this election and the quota is 390.5. There are 2 candidates again, reopen nominations and more. In round 1, reopen nominations got 21 votes and more 760 votes. The quota being 390.5. Moore is elected in the first round as the President of Sport and Physical Activity. If we then move on to the President of Education and Welfare, there were 994 votes cast in this election, which means the quota in round 1 was 497. There are 5 candidates, including reopen nominations in this. So reopen nominations polled 9 votes. Rahmani polled 185. Obina 113. Bogdan 235. And Adesanya 452. So in round 1, nobody met the quota. At the end of round 1, I took the decision to eliminate 2 candidates, one being reopen nominations with 9 votes and the other one being Obina with 113 votes. The reason that I eliminated both of those is even if all of the votes from reopen nominations had transferred to Obina, they wouldn't have got to the same number of votes as any other candidate. So it was perfectly sensible to eliminate them at the end of round 1. Once the votes had been reallocated, the quota was now 449. And in round 2, Rahmani polled 187 votes, Bogdan 244, and Adesanya 467, which means that Adesanya is elected as the President of Sport and Physical Activity in round 2. If we then move on to the President of Communication and Democracy, there were 1,040 votes cast, which means that the quota in round 1 is 520. There are 4 candidates, including reopen nominations. Reopen nominations polled 10 votes. Obiagwu polled 497, Levin 435, and Babalola 99. With the lowest number of votes, reopen nominations was limited and their votes reallocated. In round 2, the quota had fallen to 516, and in round 2, Babalola polled 99, Levin 436, and Obiagwu 497. At that point, Babalola was eliminated and their votes reallocated. In round 3, the quota had fallen to 473, and in round 3, Levin polled 440 votes, and Obiagwu polled 506 votes, which means that Abiagwu is elected as the President of Communication and Democracy in round 3. So that concludes the reading out of the result sheets, and I'm going to hand you back to Emmanuel.
Very, very much. Thank you, Peter, for the results. It's a massive, massive, huge congratulations to all of our winners. And a big, big thank you to all of the candidates. You are all winners, and that's the most important part. Having the courage to step forward and put yourself forward for the role and run in the elections make you already a winner. So a big thanks to all of the winners. Congratulations to our winners. A big thanks to all of the candidates in general. But also the most important thanks from me goes to all of the students who have taken part in this electoral process and casted your votes. The full results breakdown will be available on the union's website very, very shortly. So when you check on www.rguunion.co.uk, you'll find a full result breakdown of the elections. Keep checking our social media over the coming days for more information and reactions to from the winning candidates. From myself and the rest of the team at the union, and Peter as well, it's thank you and goodbye.